Hello, Jerry. How are you doing today?
Great, Ash. How are you? Thanks for having me.
I'm I'm good. Thank you so much. We've been lucky in London from last month and a half. Uh, it feels summer, to be honest. It's gray and green country to live in, but couldn't complain from last 1.5 months. So good summery season.
Awesome. Awesome.
Great. Jerry, before we move forward, do you have a favorite quote, something that inspires, motivates you, you would like to share with our audience?
My whole life is around entrepreneurship, and that in itself is an inspiration. And there's an entrepreneurial mindset, a formula that I really would love to bring out to all founders. It's not mine. I'm just a distributor of it. But this notion of being able to solidify a really strong idea in your mind about what the future should look like, and then sort of fertilize that with an emotion, and then just start walking forward as if it's already happened, and see what transpires from there. And it's a formula that's just worked time and time and again. It's a lot of the game of entrepreneurship is just between your ears.
Indeed, indeed. And thank you for sharing that because this is one of the biggest challenges founders face when they start their founders journey. And we are always looking for leaders like yourself in the industry who could not just educate, but motivate as well as give us, a better direction to move forward with. So, Jerry, imagine this. We are in room full of ambitious founders and early stage builders. No one knows your name, and you've got just few minutes to introduce yourself, not with your title or where you have worked in the past, but with the stories that explains why people should trust what you have to say. What would be your story?
Oh, sure. My story of entrepreneurship goes back 25 years. I launched a fintech company back in 1999 to tackle the real estate agent commission, which is basically to facilitate real estate transactions without having to pay a commission. The homeowners could save a lot of money, and buyers could potentially get homes cheaper. Just to bring to market a whole new system of real estate. And I learned a ton about entrepreneurship. I learned a ton about how hard it is to raise venture capital. And I sort of got my MBA through that 4-year experiment. Since then, I have invested in 75 different startups. I became an expert in fried chicken. I started a fried chicken company with my brother. We grew that from nothing into a manufacturing facility, and then a private equity firm came in and bought me my half out so I could focus on what I'm doing today. And throughout the entire time, I've been teaching venture capital at Indiana University Kelley School of Business. Been doing it for 21 years. And I've had a lot of really smart individuals, young people come through my classroom, and I love nothing more than to shape their minds and prepare them to succeed, no matter whether it's as an entrepreneur or just into the corporate world, but to help them train their brains around success.
Indeed, indeed. That's amazing. How did you manage to do all these things in such a short period of time?
The one thing that I've realized, Ash, about life in general is that you have time for everything. If you can really focus and prioritize, you could do it. You could do everything all the time, believe it or not. Right? The days are long. Years are short, but the days are long, and you can get it all done.
Indeed, indeed. Why not, isn't it? And the game is individual personality, reach, and skill and knowledge nowadays. Because everywhere you go, the top leader on the pyramids are the people who not just have their own personal brand, not just have the skills and understanding and the knowledge, experience, but also understand how to, put themselves in front of other people. So that's brilliant. So Jerry, I see something behind you. Dorio. What is it? Tell us more about it. It's very intriguing. I love the logo. I want to listen to the story behind it.
Sure. Well, Dorio is in reference to George Dorio. He is the first venture capitalist. Matter of fact, there was a great book about him and his principles and how he funded startups before the venture capital was even a thing. And the traditional model that he invented is still here today. And there has not been a whole lot of innovation in the venture model since he created it. And what's happened is that with the SEC rules of the accredited investor rule, requiring you to have to be a millionaire in order to invest in startups, Silicon Valley sort of built a game layer on top of those regulatory, that regulatory structure, and it made venture almost a situation where you had to be both wealthy and connected to participate. So if you can't right pedigree, right family, right school, you get in. If you don't fit those criteria, then there's a chance that you will never get your shot. And I personally believe that George Doria would be rolling over in his grave to see the traditional model still here without innovating around what he created. So we're innovating and creating a whole new game layer of venture on top of the US regulatory stack that is separate and distinct from the Silicon Valley model. It's a model called venture staking. And we believe that we are going to fork venture into two different systems. There's traditional and there is venture staking. It's sort of like there's tennis and there's pickleball. And we're going to bring pickleball to the marketplace. You know, same court, different rules. In our system, anyone can play and everyone will want to.
Would you be able to explain to our listeners a little bit about how the current venture capital space works right now, and why do you think it's not suitable for the future? And what is the difference between the model you're planning or trying to introduce into the space, and then how it makes our future better?
Well, we have no intentions of trying to disrupt venture capital or get rid of the traditional model. It's going to be here today. It's going to be here in the future. But it caters to a small group of people, right? People that have aggregated capital to form venture funds, and wealthy individuals who have the financial bandwidth in order to make investments. That model in of itself does not scale, right? They only have so many opportunities that they can look at. They have only so many deals that they can do a year. They all will be looking at tens of thousands of opportunities, millions of opportunities, collectively over a decade. And they're only going to invest in a handful of those deals. They've got a fiduciary to their limited partners, which is, I need to make our limited partners money. So the structure is set up that you do give founders a shot, but a very small amount, maybe 1% of the founders out there, a shot to get going. The world needs something much more scalable. And the way to make venture scalable is to unlock the retail investor into this. And that's where BlackRock is going. That is where the security laws are sort of moving towards, is how do you unlock the retail venture investor? That's $1 trillion asset class potential. And the question is, well, how do you do that? Well, you cannot take the Silicon Valley model and then cram it down onto the retail investor. They're not going to play that game. Okay. Retail investors want to move quickly. Retail investors want to have an instant connection. And they don't have a lot of capital to invest at on any particular deal. So how do you create a game layer on top of that? And our game layer essentially is built on this one fundamental truth in venture, and that is the right to invest in a startup in the future that is winning is less risky and more valuable than over-investing in a startup today. So with that, we're creating a marketplace for investing rights, allowing retail investors to come in at the very beginning stages of a journey of a founder and buy a venture stake, which is a right to invest in all in that founder's future rounds at 10x your venture stake. So $10 venture stake would give you a right to put $100 into each of the future rounds at the same terms and conditions as the VCs. What this does, it allows the small retail investor to build a large portfolio of opportunities for pennies, not dollars. And what we all know in venture is that 80% of the investments that you make today are not going to work. So if you're a $10,000 per startup investor, for you to take advantage of the power law and the convexity of returns, you'd have to put 10K into 50 promising startups, right? That is $500,000. But imagine if you could buy a venture stake in 50 startups for $1,000 per, where you spend $50,000, but now you've got guaranteed rights to invest in each of the future rounds. Now you can sit back, watch and wait to see which companies are actually winning, and then put your capital to work there. So you shrink the amount of money that you would have to invest down almost by 90% to get to the the handful of companies that are succeeding.
Interesting. And just to give our listeners an understanding of like how many startups do VCs actually expect to fail when they invest into the portfolio, and then how we can compare it with the new model which you're introducing and how it mitigates the risk, just for the
Yeah.
understanding of the listeners.
Yeah. So depending on the VC stage, right? If it's like a Series C or Series D round, you should not be expecting a high failure rate, right? Your failure rate is probably less than 50% at that point in time. But when you get to the pre-seed, the very early stages, failure rates are as high as 90%. VCs won't touch that arena because they don't have enough information. Most angels won't touch that arena. You know who touches that arena? Family and friends financing. So there's a $65 billion asset class called family and friends funding, and it's the most toxic funding, component of the venture ecosystem. And because family members will overinvest, they will not diversify. So and with such a high failure rate, you create all sorts of emotional issues raising money from family members. So our model replaces the family and friends financing into a venture staking mechanism where if we can aggregate tens of thousands of small investors to buy a venture stake in a founder, then that spreads the risk out dramatically across a number of individuals. It starts giving us signals and predictability about which founders have a really good shot at succeeding. But on the other side, a founder can come in and raise their first round of capital through venture staking without selling debt or equity. They're just selling investment rights. So as the founder, think about it as like the Thiel Fellowship. The Thiel Fellowship is a model where Peter Thiel gives, a young person, a couple $100,000, just go figure something out. Here's some money, just go figure something out. That model has produced more unicorns per capita than any other model, including Y Combinator. So we are going to scale the Thiel Fellowship globally, right, by creating these venture staking arenas where we bring founders and capital creators at the very beginning, right? We all take a little bit of risk, but if that founder starts objectively winning, the founder then brings those venture stakers along to buy stock all the way until their exit. And so it's fundamentally different.
Yeah, definitely. And it makes me as an individual investor powerful because now I have this opportunity which I didn't before, right? Just to clarify, is it something like you have kind of like, so continuing your example, you invest $1,000 and that gives you kind of a ticket which is a guarantee for you that you can invest up to $10,000, $100,000 in future into those startups which you have invested either at the pre-seed or seed round. Am I going in the right direction?
That is correct. So what's interesting here, Ash, is that venture stakes are not securities. It's not an investment contract, which means we are going to operate outside the purview of the SEC, which means we get the opportunity to design a new capital creation system, right, from the ground up. And as a venture staker, having those rights to buy into those companies in the future, you get that optionality. It's not an obligation. You get that optionality, but you also use that word ticket. You get a ticket on the founder's journey. So there's a social contract here. Not only is the founder going to raise that venture staking round of $200,000, but it's the founder's duty to educate his or her venture stakers along the way during this R&D process. What they're learning, what they're discovering, what's working, what's not working, all of that, because all of that information right there is massively valuable education that's just falling away. We're losing it. We're not capturing that education. So think about every founder's journey is like a book that's unfolding in real time. So venture stakers are going to get a feed of all their startups or all their founders and being able to keep up with everything that's happening with all of them. So you're intimately familiar with who's objectively winning. So it's a massive education opportunity for venture stakers, plus that option to invest in the future. It's just a far superior model because the more venture stakes that you do, that you buy, the smarter you're going to become as an investor. You'll inherently just start acquiring really good investing skills.
Interesting. What kind of guarantees we have in this kind of stake option? Obviously, in the open world right now, when we go, I don't know, using an app, trading one-to-one
Yeah.
or e-Turo, right? What we do is we go to the app, we select a company which is already public, they're selling their share, we buy the shares. Now, we know we have no guarantee. The company could just go down tomorrow and then we lose all the
Hmm.
money. But we have this kind of information floating around in the open market where we say, oh, if you buy Tesla today, there is a potential that we're going to get, I don't know, 100% markup in a year of time. And based on that information, we actually take that risk. Whereas in this particular scenario, which you just introduced, you kind of like buy the opportunity to invest into that stake, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So how do we guarantee, or not guarantee? Guarantee is not a good word actually. How do we support investors in that sense?
Okay. So because we have to create a whole new capital creation system,
Mm.
we are going to, this is not going to be a fast growth Robin Hood, go, through the roof kind of dynamic. It's going to be a slow growth foundational system built on trust and transparency and education.
Mm.
So for a venture staker to actually be able to go to an arena and be and venture stake, they have to be licensed by us in order to be a venture staker. In order to be licensed by us, you have to play our startup investing simulation called Fantasy Startup.
There you go. Mm.
And in the fantasy startup simulation, you have to make 50 startup investing decisions. And these were real companies that we pulled from PitchBook. We homogenized the information, but we want to give you, here are the 50 companies. If you were in the position to invest in these companies at their very beginnings, at their genesis, you've got $500. I want you to build a portfolio. If someone cannot get through our simulation and make those 50 investment decisions, they're not going to be licensed because they're not ever going to execute on the game plan of being a good venture staker. On the other side, you have the founder. They have to pass our exam, the Qualified Accredited Investor exam. It's a 100-question exam that covers everything about venture. If you pass the exam, we believe you're at the top 20% of venture knowledge. We believe that no founder should be coming to raise money from a community of venture stakers if they don't understand the game of venture themselves. So they come together under this sort of screening and qualified. They're ready to engage in capital creation. And so that is the basis upon which people will be operating. Now, the guarantees in the future, we all know that this is uncertain, right? But this is why venture staking is a superior model to investing. So let's just say, Ash, going back to the example that you are a $10,000 venture investor. Typically in today's traditional market, to buy into 50 startups, you probably would invest that 10,000 per startup in the form of a safe note or a safe, right? And that safe, which was sort of created by Y Combinator, that safe would convert into equity at some point in the future. But you have no idea what that looks like. You have no color in any of that. And you know what? Your money's gone. So if they convert you, whatever valuation, it doesn't make a difference. Your money's gone. With our model, with a $10,000 venture stake, and then you see that deal happening in real time, you get to decide, well, maybe do I want to put my 10,000 in now? Or maybe I'm just going to throw my cards away. Like, I don't want any part of this, right? So you're actually taking advantage of the capital efficiency where you get to cherry pick the best deals to your advantage, right? Which will increase your odds of success. Now, once they go through a venture staking round, right, and they start doing these regulated rounds, which will help facilitate, then they'll go through the regulatory, pathways, and then we will facilitate all the venture stakers the ability to jump in on those deals. At the same terms and conditions, whoever is investing in that company, right? So if Andreessen Horowitz comes in and goes, oh, we want to put all this money to work in this company, well, guess what? The venture stakers get in at the same deals, at the same terms and conditions, right? And that's how we can increase odds of success. But ultimately, these do come down to exits, right? And I believe, and you could download our blueprint on Dorio.com, I believe the future is going to be equity tokenization. So these special purpose vehicles, these very complicated structures to get equity into companies, I think that is all going to get rolled over into equity restricted equity tokens that at some point can get unlocked for trading.
Indeed.
That's the future. And so there will be liquidity, I believe, faster than what we currently have right now.
And to add to this point, many retail investors actually think that VCs intentionally hype the company's pre-IPO to create an exit, and this is not fair with investors in our current world, which kind of you're trying to mitigate in terms of risk for the venture stakers, right?
Absolutely. I mean, everything about what we do is trust and transparency, right? In our model, in our vision, we believe we can create a new capital system based on three principles: shared information, shared risk, and shared prosperity, right? And in our game, everyone, whether you're a $10 venture staker, $100 investor, or a $10,000 venture staker, $100,000 investor, everyone is buying in at the same terms and conditions, right?
Perfect. That is awesome because everyone is equally
Taking
respected in
risk.
it. Yeah, maybe their stake is lower, but the risk percentage is exactly same. Great stuff. So Jerry, I'm super interested to understand the whole process. So let's create a scenario, a hypothetical scenario. Startup, Hot Circles, my startup, right? I am raising, I don't know, $100,000 just for the simplicity sake, right? I have done your test, I have passed it, I'm there. Now my company's information is available to all the venture stakers on the app or whichever platform they're going to invest. What happened next?
Okay, so sort of an intermediate step. So we are going to build this capital system around arenas. Okay, let's just say I want to build an arena around Indiana-based founders. We want to just get another 100 founders out of Indiana started with Indiana capital, right? So we build an arena specific for that. Or there could be an arena in Lagos, Nigeria, right, where they want to get founders down there started with venture staking. So as a founder, once you pass the exam, you've passed our background check, there's no criminal background, there's KYC involved, and then you would find the arena that's most appropriate for you, right? We'll have a general arena that you can go to, but as we see this down the road, I think we're going to have 15, 20,000 arenas across the globe around communities focused on building that community of entrepreneurs. But so you'd come to an arena, you would do a 10-minute equivalent TED Talk, and what you're really is just pitching you. The only thing that you have right now is you, maybe an idea, but ultimately people are going to be venture staking, based on your commitment and your ambition and your perseverance. And so that's the bet. Like, we're going to bet on you. And if you meet the threshold of 100,000, right? Let's say you built a community of 1,500 venture stakers. That money comes in, and then you will get your proceeds. We'll take a transaction fee, obviously, to manage the transaction and help you build. But then that money goes to you, and now this is your R&D capital. You can take it. You can go to conferences. You can use that money to buy services from a startup studio. Ideally, you've already been aligned with a studio that can help you build something. But then you're on the clock for anywhere between 4 and 6 months. What can you produce with this $100,000? What are you able to produce, and can you put together a viable plan of a viable business opportunity? And at that point in time, then you may go shop the idea out to angel investors or seed VCs, and that's when if you get a deal, that's when your venture stakers all get the opportunity to add to that round at up to 10x their venture stake. So I'm imagining your first round's non-dilutive, but your second round, you may be raising $2.5–3 million, right?
So let's pause here then. So that's really good information. So I wanted $100,000 and I registered with it, pass. Everybody knows about my information. Now I'm going to different VCs to raise money, and let's say Sequoia. There you go. They invested in me $100,000, and the moment they invested $100,000 into my startup, all the venture stackers from the app get that information quickly. Now, what they say, okay, let me also invest $1,000. So they also invested $1,000. Let's say 100 people. So instead of $100,000, now I have 200,000, 100 from Sequoia and 100 from
Your
the
community.
ventures community, right? So
Yeah.
now I have $200,000. Brilliant. What happens next?
You keep building. You keep building. You go find customers. You get your product out. we really like the idea of these venture studios where you have these infrastructure that helps you deal with all the mundane day-to-day nonsense of a startup, so you can be focusing on customers and product, right? That's really what matters early on, is customers and product. So we just give you the runway to build, and you know what, you may make it or you may not make it. But if you're a venture staker, Ash, I believe in you, but I also have 75 other venture stakes out there, and I'm just going to look for the ones that are killing it, and that's where I'm going to really start betting heavy, just like poker, right? You don't go all in on the anti-bet, right? You don't throw it all in. You wait to see some cards.
How does distribution of stake is distributed? For example, Square invested into my startup $100,000 and I gave them 20%. But then these 100 venture stakers also invested $100,000 each, $1,000, let's say, for the simplicity. Am I going to give them 20%? So I'm losing 40% of my stake altogether?
If that's the deal, that's the deal that you do, right?
Okay. So basically this 20% is distributed equally into this 100 stakers, and they have like 1.05 or something.
I think what's really going to play out is that, let's just go say you raise a couple $100,000 on a venture stake. Now you go back to market. You after about 6 months, you've discovered something really amazing. You want to go now. Really, what you want to do is go raise $2 or $3 million. Okay, raising a couple $100,000 after this, it's a trap door. Because now you're on the clock. You're on, because now equity capital's in play. If you're not putting points on the board fast enough, and you go back out to market because you're running out of money, you're pretty much dead, right? So really, on our minds, the following a venture staking round, your next round should be $2 to $3 million. Now your venture stakers, may combine to represent 1.5 million of your $2.5 million, right? And whatever you get your lead investor to come in and buy $1 million or invest $1 million at a pre of 9 million, and they're getting 10%, and the venture stakers come in for another $1 million, they get 10%. So you sold 20% of your company to raise your $2 million, right? Which is a very fair deal to get started. And then you've got capital. I mean, you've got money to work with, right? So many startups get underfunded, and they just kind of fall apart because they don't get a real shot with their capital, right? And that's the other thing that we're trying to solve here, right?
Indeed. That's amazing, because now the founders have more money to do their business. They understand how the VC world works, how the capital raising works, so they are working harder to increase the profitability. And then the stakers have better understanding of, okay, I have invested $1,000 in 100 companies, 80% of them are not doing good, but the remaining 20% are, so let me invest more into those companies so that I can get return of all my losses.
Yes, that's exactly right. And those 20%, following the Pareto principle, those 20% will pay for your 80% of your losses, and then provide a profit on top of that, right? And what you're looking for is an outlier. You're looking for an opportunity to 1,000x your money. That's really what you're looking for. That's venture, okay? Not 2x your money, not 3x your money, 1,000x your money. Right?
Yeah. And how do VCs justify taking huge equity stakes early while, obviously they're giving you more money? In our example, Sequoia gave me $100,000, right? That's why I gave them 20%. Yeah. But then obviously, let's say, for example, in the same fashion, if a venture stack individual invested $50,000 into the companies, then would that person get 10%?
It all depends on the structure of these deals, right?
Right.
I think it's important to understand, and I tell this to founders all the time. Let me reframe what a founder is for you. Let's just imagine you are in the bowels of corporate America, right? Or in the corporate world. You are yearning to have an opportunity to go build a company. Right? You feel stifled inside of there. I bet you there's probably 100,000 people that are talented, smart, have ideas, but they just don't know how to get started as an entrepreneur, right? If someone came up to those people, those 100,000 people who are feeling this, and say, hey, look, how about if we give you a couple $100,000 just to go start something, and if you're succeeding, we'll give you 2 or 3 million after that. And at the end of the day, you're going to, if you sell this company, you're going to own 20 or 25% of the company. and you've not taken any personal financial risk. You've been, you've been given this opportunity, right? How many people would take that opportunity? How many people would love to be earning $100,000 right now, building a startup and having a boatload of equity that could turn into something really massive, 7 to 10 years from now? There's a lot of people who want that opportunity. What we've created in the traditional system, and I'm sorry to say it because it's a very, I don't want to use the word toxic, but it is toxic, this mentality of founders. Like, I deserve to hold 100% of my company. I want your money. I don't want to give you anything for it, because this is my company. This is mine. And I want to be an oligarch. I want to be a Mark Zuckerberg. I want to be, one of these individuals. And my answer to them is like, hey, if that's who you are, go to Y Combinator, go to Silicon Valley, use the traditional model, try to be an oligarch. In our system of shared risk, shared information, shared prosperity, you're being granted a gift, which is a $100,000 to $200,000 cash infusion that you don't have to pay back, no personal guarantees. You're not selling any equity, and you get a shot. Now it's up to you, right? That is a model I believe that we can fund a lot of entrepreneurs who are understanding that, hey, I want my venture stakers to make money. I want my investors to make money. We're all here to make money, right? And it's not just a one-sided, situation where one person should be controlling the company. Use your own money then. Invest your own money. You want 100% control, use your own money. If you don't want it, if you want to use other people's money, make them money. You make money, they make money.
Yeah. One of the most famous examples in startup world is MailChimp. This chap went on, I don't know, thousands of VCs, friends and family, every single person, and pitched his idea about, I do email marketing. Nobody invested in him. Nobody. He literally poured all the money, whatever he was making, through the marketing into the company. And then there was a day when people started reaching out to him. We would like to invest because finally, after, 5-10 years, we recognize that this is a market and this is making money. So would you take our money? So I can see that if you have courage, that's the first thing you need. And then you have a proper product which solves a pain point in the industry, you can definitely, get that injection of money from stakers. Great. Gerry, this conversation is going so interesting. I can talk to you hours and hours, but unfortunately we are limited of time. And I want to pick your brains. You're an interesting person. I want to learn from you as much as possible in this short period of time. I'm eager to learn more about your personal experience in the VC world. Would you be able to share one use case or case study which was one of the biggest learning in your life, so that our listeners can also learn from it and either stop making that mistake, or something that which you would like to pass on as a learning?
Yeah, I can give you a couple of embarrassing investing anecdotes. My first one, when I was 27, I put my family's life savings into a startup. It was my law school money, and I put it all in because it was a company that was going to get rid of hazardous waste landfills. That money was cooked probably 6 months into it. It was gone, right? And boy, that was painful, right? So I learned, first off, you have a concentration risk if you're putting a lot of money into a single startup, right? If you're a founder, you have concentration risk just by by virtue of the fact that you're starting a company. But as an investor, you do not want concentration risk. The other thing is you've got to be prepared to strike at all times. And so fast forward in 2012, 2013, I was pretty active as an investor. I get this call from this guy down in Atlanta, and he goes, I've heard you've been, an active investor. Someone recommended you. Minimum investment of $10,000, and we're building this. I've got this app called Calendly, and we're building this, and I'm raising $350,000. And I sat on that. I didn't do it. I sat on it. Didn't move fast enough. Fast forward, Calendly is worth like $3.5 billion, and my $10,000 would be worth like $10 million today.
Yeah.
Right. So you just have to understand, put yourself in a mindset, okay, if I'm going to invest $5,000 a year in venture for the next 20 years, right? I'm going to, buy, $25 venture stakes. I'm going to put 250. I'm just going to I'm just going to keep buying and owning, buying and owning, buying and owning, and let the formulations, let the power law do its thing. Let the convexity of returns do its thing. You've activated those principles that are true. They've been true since the very beginning. So it's really about framing your mind to be engaged as an investor at all times under a budget that makes sense for you. As a founder, this is not your life. If this is like your baby and you're starting a company and you're making it all about you, you're going to be biased against what's in the best interest of the company and your investors. So you got to understand it's not your baby anymore. You're just the captain of the ship now. You've got a community of backers, you've got capital there, you've got supporters. You're the captain. Be the captain, right? Let's go build capital. Let's go create capital together. Let's build wealth together, right? And then see where it goes.
That's really good. You get to learn not only to understand how to mitigate your risk, but also where to go forward when you are taking risks. So that is crucial. Great stuff. So Gerry, before we move on to our lightning round, I would like to ask you something personal, which I always do to all of my guests. Throughout your journey and experience, there must have been valuable lessons learned. One of the lessons you have already shared with us. If you don't mind sharing, could you reflect on your experience and tell us about a mistake or setback that you encountered along the way that you now consider a regret? And additionally, what advice would you give our listeners based on this experience?
There's a couple of things. First, in my first startup, I did have an opportunity to raise capital under very hard terms, and I passed on it. And I decided to self-fund. I got a loan from the bank to expand homei.com. And just so you know, this was my first startup. This is probably before, how do you sell your house online? Right. I shipped these things out all over Indianapolis, and we went from zero to $1 million in revenue in 18 months, not selling, without taking a real estate commission. My ego was pretty big. And I thought it was worth a certain amount of money. I had trouble raising VC money. I had a sort of a deal on the table that I passed on and elected to self-finance and expand through debt. And then right when all that happened, and we just made an expansion into Columbus, Ohio, and Orlando, Florida, and I brought on my tech team to create the TurboTax of real estate, 9/11 hit. And it rolled me like a riptide, just rolled me over, right? And I could never recover the business from that point in time. I was always chasing my tail. So if money is available to you, and that's what someone is willing to pay, then that probably means that's the market for your company, right? Don't try to fight that. The whole idea is to go build something of value, right? And so looking forward, like you need this money to grow, you need this money to do what you need to do. Don't look at it as such an adversarial kind of relationship with investors.
Interesting and very deep. Thank you for sharing that, Gerry. And I really appreciate, not everybody is able to open up and share their experiences, but thank you so much for sharing that. And I appreciate it. Great. So let's move on to our lightning round now, then. We have 6 quick fire questions for you. If you don't want to answer one of them, just give me a skip and then we move to the next one.
Okay.
Are you okay with it?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Number 1, what are the top 3 strategies to generate capital in 2025?
Bitcoin, stablecoin, and I would say it's not there yet, but venture staking.
Why not?
If you're on the risk side, on the high risk capital creation side, yes, those are 3 strategies.
Great stuff. What book would you recommend to our audience and why?
It's an old one. It's a classic. It's Think and Grow Rich, and by Napoleon Hill. And whether it's Tony Robbins or Napoleon Hill or a myriad of other folks, they're all saying the same thing, but in their own ways, right? You've got to get your mind right. You have to get your mind right before you start the journey of being an entrepreneur. If you don't get your mind right, then you're really at risk of just being sort of flailing around in the wind, right? I say this all the time to young people is that startups get built from the inside out, not the outside in, right? Everyone wants us to look out here and just like start doing things, and this has to come from within. So you've got to get your
Within
mind right.
itself.
You've got to align your mind and your spirit around your objective first and foremost, and be very clear with what you want and why you want that. So I would
Indeed.
say think and grow rich.
Thank you for that. What one attribute or characteristic in your mind of a successful founder?
Transparency,
Mm,
100% transparency.
great, great. What's your favorite personal productivity tool or habit?
Say that again.
Personal productivity tool or habit?
Oof. Um, I exercise is something fundamentally I have to do every day as a meditation practice and also as a way just to energize my body. And I think everything flows from how healthy we are as humans, our bodies. So it's a practice to eat the right foods. It's a practice to exercise your body and move your body, right? Because that's what we have to protect first and foremost,
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. I go to gym 3 times a day, but now I started going to a Bollywood dance Zumba class with my
Oh,
partner. And that since I started that from last 1 month, I feel more connected with my partner because I don't know, we are sweating, we are not good at dancing. It just feels
sounds
good,
like fun. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah, great. What's a new or a crazy business idea you would love to pursue if you had time?
Jeez. I'd like to bring back newspapers.
Yeah.
Everything's gone digital. I like
Yeah.
holding a newspaper. There's got to be a way to bring that back in a way that's really fun and enjoyable. But that's not anything I'm willing to pursue at the moment.
Yeah, yeah. Going to be difficult, but it would be lovely to have them. I mean, we still have newspapers in England, by the way.
Yeah, we do. We
Yeah,
do. We
yeah,
can't get delivery of the New York Times. We can't get delivery of, any of the national papers. It just,
yeah.
everything's gone digital, right?
Digital.
What's
Yeah,
the point of getting a newspaper 3 days later, which is what they do? They send it in the mail, just come
yeah,
on.
yeah, yeah. True. And last but not least, what's an interesting or fun fact about you that most people don't know?
I did a vision quest once where I was in the woods by myself without a tent or a sleeping bag or a book or a phone in a sit spot for 4 days just with water and no food to try to discover, who I really am. It was
Wow.
monitored and managed. Yeah,
I don't know if I would be able to do that.
you'd be able to do it. You just don't think about it, just do it. That's
Just do it.
tell entrepreneurs, just go do it. Go sell something. Don't think about it. Don't whiteboard. Just go sell. Go
Sell
talk to
it, right?
someone. That's all you got to do, man. Just go talk. Go on.
Yeah, yeah. Great stuff. Gerry, thank you so much for joining me and sharing your, a story, unpacking the last years of building multiple businesses and the idea you're building right now. If people want to get in touch with you, people want to, learn from you or have any questions, what's the best way to do it?
Yeah, simply go to dorio.com. That's the spelling up here.
Hmm.
Believe it or not, you have an opportunity to test venture staking right now because we have opened up a venture staking round in what we're doing and what we're building. So you can buy as
Mm,
little as a $10 venture stake or as high as a $1,000 venture stake. As we're conducting this R&D and bringing this whole new capital system to market, you have an opportunity to test this model, kick the tires, and if we raise our next round of capital, you get to come in at the same terms and conditions. So it's a unique opportunity. It's a historic one. We have almost 200 venture stakers. It's never been done before, so we've proven that people want to do this. And
mm.
yeah, you're invited to join us on this journey. We're going to create a meritocracy in entrepreneurship and venture, and the world needs it.
Indeed. The world definitely needs us. Thank you so much for sharing that, Gerry. Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your inspiring journey and the impactful work you're doing, especially for the founders. Nobody thinks about them, but you are. So thanks for that. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on Founders Podcast.
Thank you very much, Ash.